So in part one, we looked at the principles, the ideas underpinning democracies, the strengths and weaknesses as well. Now, time to look at different type of democracies, because the democratic institutions were not applied the same through time and through different national contexts. The first experiment with democracy goes all the way back to ancient Greece. So the 5th, the 4th century before our era, in ancient Athens, so one particular city-state adopted democratic procedures. The Athenian democracy was peculiar. You had citizens, and the citizenry didn't include everybody, so women, slaves, but also foreigners were not considered citizens, so it was only male citizens of Athens, so born in Athens, had rights and obligations. So you had in ancient Athens the first model of democracy that we know, known as direct democracy. And that's where you give a lot of rights and obligations also to people. Direct democracy, just to come back to this slide right here, direct democracy in Athens was extremely demanding. Okay, as you can tell from this depiction here, citizens were called upon to meet in a public space, in an agora, to talk about important questions. So when we say that Athenian democracy had a direct form of democracy, we mean that Athenian democracy required from citizens direct participation. So they had to be there to voice their opinion. They had to be there to cast a ballot, to vote on those important matters. So citizens directly debated and voted on important issues that the city-state, that Athens was confronted to. So questions of civic matters, the contribution of all to public life, ostracism, that was kind of again, a peculiar mechanism in ancient Athens by which you could send a citizen in exile every year. Okay, and that was used to keep in check kind of people that were a bit too ambitious, people that wanted to rise above the citizenry, that wanted to concentrate power, that we thought could be a potential tyrant. They were sent away in exile, and that was a vote by the people, by the way, an anonymous vote. Okay, where you would decide who you want to ostracize. Questions of war and peace, okay, were also decided there. So citizens decided if they would fund a military campaign and if they would wage war against another city-state or other nation. And by the way, in ancient Athens, about 1 year out of 3, Athens was waging war against somebody. Okay, so when we come back to Kant and the ideas that people are bearing the weight of war, so they're unlikely to support war, go to ancient Athens. Quite the opposite. People were pro-war and supported that idea quite frequently. Anyway, people directly participated in public life. They didn't give their power to other people to represent them. They went there directly. They were also involved in the administration. So when I said there were obligations, in Canada now, we don't have a lot of obligations. Basically, respect the laws, that's about it. In ancient Athens, there was requirements for citizens to partake in administrative duties. So they had to spend some time, it was chosen at random, but if they were chosen, to spend some time devoting yourself to public life, to the life of the community. Okay, so quite a demanding type of democracy. Rarely applied now, and for many different reasons. The most obvious one would be that this is an impractical form of democracy for countries of millions of people. In Athens, on every given year, there was about 40,000 citizens. 40,000 citizens, and that was quite a limited number, and that was limited on purpose by excluding women, foreigners, and slaves. So even at 40,000, it's a lot of people. But imagine doing we're now 38, 39 millions of Canadians, all of us participating in democracy, debating and voting. It's impractical for countries of millions of people span over 3 oceans. It's also an unrealistic, or let's say inefficient, form of democracy in the sense that a direct democracy usually takes longer. It takes longer before you get to a decision. It gets longer to hear the opinions of all and to hear people express their point of view. Bottom line, decision making is usually long and inefficient. Okay, because you need to hear a lot of people and the processes tend to be tedious. What we go for nowadays is not, of course, direct democracy. This is maybe applied to a very local level, and even there, it's never perfect direct democracy like we saw in Athens, although that was not even perfect. They excluded a lot of people. What we go for nowadays is representative democracy. That basically went completely the other way on that involvement of citizen continuum. In a direct democracy, you expect citizens to be participating, to be ever acting. In a representative democracy, we don't ask much to people. So it's the other opposite. We think this is a direct form of democracy, meaning that people, okay, in case of Canada, it's usually close to 100,000 people, will decide on a representative, will decide on one individual, one person to represent the entire district. Okay, that person will go in the House of Commons, or if you look at the United States, in the House of Representatives, to represent their district. Okay, so that's the main principle structuring the system. Voters in this type of democracy are not voting for a party. That's a common misconception. Are not even voting for a party leader. They're not even voting for the ideas of the party. They are voting fundamentally for a representative, for that individual, that man or woman representing the district. Why we say that? Because typically, you don't think I voted for my local representative. Maybe I voted for Justin Trudeau, or in the United States for Donald Trump, or other leaders like that, or parties, Democrats and Republicans, liberal or conservatives. We think in a representative democracy that we vote for a representative, that individual. Why? Because that representative is autonomous. So whether you like it or not, and many Canadians don't particularly like that facet of our democracy, but that representative, once elected by people in his district, can take whatever decision they want. Okay? They can switch parties. The day after the election, if they were, I don't know, elected as a liberal, the day after the election, they can change parties. They can declare themselves conservative, or New Democrat, or Green. Why? Because we think in a representative democracy, we voted for that individual, that representative, not his party or his or her party, not his or her leader, not even his or her ideas, but that individual. Okay? So that creates a lot of cynicism, I know. It's one of the weaknesses, but the representative is supreme. So they can take whatever decisions once they're elected. We think that if people are unhappy with the decision they take once they're elected, they can reprimand, they can sanction that representative by voting him or her out of office in the next election in 3 or 4 or 5 years' time. Okay, which is, giving a lot of trust towards popular memory. Let's put it that way. We tend to forget from time to time. Problem with that, of course, it's not always truly representative of the will of the people. That representative can do whatever once they're elected. It's also not particularly representative of the people when you think those representatives, they present ideas. But look, in any electoral campaign, every single party is presenting a platform of between 40 to 50 pages of ideas and suggestions. what the people voted for, actually, we don't have a clear idea of what people voted for. They voted for the package. So maybe you disagreed with some ideas of the conservative or liberals, but you agreed on others. So you voted for the package deal, basically, which is a bit problematic. It's hard to see why people voted for a certain party other than just generalities like people want to change, or people want a progressive agenda, or stability, or generalities like that. One more problem, and that's extremely central to our point here: representative democracy involved very little popular participation. People are not involved. You vote for somebody on the day of the election, they will be in parliament to represent you for 4 years. There's very little requirements, very little things asked to people to participate in political life. So people kind of give those responsibilities to those representatives, let them take those tough decisions, and de-responsibilize themselves. That's the other extreme. One more, I said there's two extremes: direct, great people's involvement; representative, little popular involvement. Let's go to the middle ground. We have a semi-direct democracy, and they decided to go for a compromise system here of democracy. They thought those representatives, they're okay. That's a good system. It makes the system efficient, right? We're not millions of people giving our opinion and voting on these things. We're 300, 400. That's manageable. The system is efficient, and we can take a quick decision. So let's keep those representatives. Semi-direct democracy proponents, though, thought, but let's keep them on a short leash, though. Let's not give them absolute powers. Let's not make them supreme. Let's always have a mechanism by which we can keep them accountable. We can remind them of their place, that they're serving the people. They're not on their own. They're not doing whatever they want. So in a semi-direct democracy, one mechanism that exists is the right to revoke representatives. We call that the right to recall representative. They have that at the state level for governors in the US, in the United States. So a very simple process. They call that a recall procedure. If a representative took too many liberties, or is corrupted, or people don't like him or her, they have a possibility to start a recall procedure. What's the recall procedure? It's actually people that want to get that representative out of office will start a petition. They will collect a specific number of signatures in a specific number of time, so a specific time frame. So you need 1 million signatures in 3 months, okay, something like that. It depends, it varies from one semi-direct democracy to the other. If you're able, let's say, to get that 1 million signatures in 3 months, right? That's the rule the community was abiding by. Then the state will hold an election, what we call a recall election. That recall election will ask a very simple question. Do you want to fire this representative? Okay, do you want to fire or recall representative X? Okay. If a majority of people say yes, that representative is out of office. They're kicked out. If people say no, that representative remain, of course, in power. So pretty simple. You let people decide. Okay. So if you have the majority for the removal, they're out. It's been seen in Venezuela. It's been seen in states in the United States. The last time it actually went through this entire process was in California. Okay, in 2002, 2003. You probably recognize the gentleman on the left, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Probably not the one on the right, though, because he's not a movie star. Gray Davis was the governor of California. November 2002, Gray Davis is re-elected as governor of California. Very quickly, though, he will fall out of grace. A lot of corruption charges. The state is on the brink of bankruptcy. Everything's going wrong in California, right in the year after he's elected. So people are mad at him. they will start a recall procedure. So they will not wait till the next election in 4 years' time. They're taking matters into their own hands. In California, recall procedures are allowed. You need 12% of voters' signature in 160 days. So a bit under 6 months to gather 12% of voters' signature. So it's about 900,000, close to 1 million signature are required, okay, on your petition asking for a recall election. People were so mad about him, so mobilized that they were able to gather even more than 1 million signature. So they presented that to the state of California. Following the rules, they had no choice but to hold. In October 2003, less than a year after the re-election of Gray Davis was facing a recall election. And basically the question was very simple. Do you want to revoke? Do you want to recall? Do you want to fire Gray Davis out of office? And 55% of people said yes. On that night, Gray Davis was recalled. Gray Davis was fired by the people in California. On that same ballot, they also asked, well, if Gray Davis is recalled, who would you support? Who would you vote for? And Arnold Schwarzenegger was the preferred candidate of Californians. That's one procedure in semi-direct democracy. There's always a procedure to keep these people honest, to keep these people accountable. They could be ejected out of their seats. One more thing that they have in a semi-direct democracy is the initiative procedure. And it's about the same as a recall, but it's not about representative. So about that initiative procedure, people in a semi-direct democracy thought, we want those representative, but we really liked also the direct democracy component where people are active citizens, where they propose legislation, they propose solutions, and they vote on them. So they thought, let's have that. Let's have some of that. Some of active citizen proposing, voting on specific laws. Not just those representatives voting on these laws, but everybody. They came up with what we call the initiative procedure. Under this initiative procedure, citizens can propose laws. Okay, it's been seen in some states in the U.S. where people propose the legalization of marijuana. Okay, in the state of Washington, Maryland, and others. It's actually people that propose these laws. The same step as a recall. You ask people that are motivated, that want to put a question on the ballot to start a petition. Show us that there's public interest for this question. Show us that people have an appetite to express their opinion on this. If you have the required number of signature, then the solution, then the proposal, it's a system of proposal they have in the States, Prop 54, Prop 18, is put on a ballot so that everybody can give their opinion. And it's always a yes or no question, right? So the question that citizens in the state of Washington were faced with years ago was, do you want to decriminalize marijuana? Yes or no. There's no maybe, there's no in between, yes or no. And the majority of people in the state of Washington said yes. Therefore, it was accepted. Okay, so it gives a bit of initiative to people to spearhead the lawmaking process. You don't just leave that to representative. People are active. Okay, people are mobilized. They're active and participating citizens. Of course, citizens are involved and participate on some issues, not all. Okay, so we don't give them complete freedom. That would be direct democracy. That would be a bit too cumbersome. That would be inefficient. But on some issues, right? Prove us that there's appetite. We'll put it on the ballot and you'll have popular participation. So of course you got the advantages and the disadvantages of all these systems. Some had great popular participations while others didn't. Some are extremely efficient, like representative democracy is efficient. They take quick decisions, while others are slow and inefficient, right? Like direct democracies. For our purpose, if we ask ourselves which system is the most democratic one, democracy is characterized by rule by the people. Direct democracy, of course, would be the most democratic solution, followed by semi-direct democracy and representative. right? In that order. Why? Well, direct democracy has a lot of input from the people. That's what democracies are about. Now, if we ask the question, which one is better suited for a society just recovering from civil war, from disorder, from chaos, from anarchy, maybe the representative democracy system is better. It provides more stability, it provides more certainty, it provides more order and quick decision making. While the semi-direct and direct democracy traditionally can be more open for people's challenges, right? For conflict, for competing interests, battling it out in the political arena. So if you're looking for more order and stability, which in many cases post-conflict societies are after, typically representative democracies are seen as the best option because they provide more certainty and stability and order. Not in all cases, but in most of them. So that's when we talk about those institutions, the kind of cost benefit they provide. Just wanted to give you a taste of those different types of democracy. On the next theme, we're going to talk about non-democracies, so the other part of the spectrum that don't follow democratic rules whatsoever.